Mama, open this gate. Grace, you are back early. I was not expecting you.
Whose car is that, Mama? Someone came to help me with the generator. That is all. Go home and rest. I will call you in the morning.
Open the gate, Mama.
You are tired, Grace. You are reading meaning into nothing. Victor, you are reading meaning into nothing.
I was passing. Your mother needed help.
You were passing.
Grace, it is not what you are thinking.
How long, Mama?
You are being dramatic. You just came from market and you are standing here making accusations in my compound. I am your mother. How long?
Go home, Grace.
Okay, Mama.
Grace did not grow up with much. She grew up with enough. Her father was a quiet man who sold firewood at the edge of Omefe Market. He died when Grace was 11, leaving behind a small compound, 2 goats, and a lesson he never had the chance to finish teaching. Her mother Pauline picked herself up the way women in Omefe always did, loudly at church, silently at home, and raised Grace and her younger brother through school fees and pepper soup and a stubbornness that Grace mistook for strength for a very long time. It was the pepper soup that started everything good in Grace's life. By 16, she was helping her mother sell at the market. By 18, she had her own pot, her own corner stall, and a growing name in Omefe for a pepper soup so rich that traders from 3 streets away came with containers at dawn. People said she had her father's hands, careful, patient, unhurried. Whatever she made well. She met Victor at 22. He was not remarkable when she found him, a young man running errands for a depot owner on Akali Road, wearing a smile that arrived before the rest of him, and a confidence that had no business in a man with so little money. But he had plans. He talked about them the way a man speaks when he fully intends to keep his word. Grace listened. She believed. That was the thing about Grace. She believed people completely until she had a reason not to. They married 2 years later in a small ceremony that Pauline organized with the kind of energy that made it feel partly hers. Pauline was everywhere that day, directing chairs, adjusting Grace's head tie, whispering into Victor's ear during the family photographs. Grace found it warm. That was what mothers did. For the first 3 years, the marriage was unremarkable in the best way. Victor's depot grew, Grace's pepper soup business expanded. They moved from a rented room to a proper compound with a gate. They had 2 children, a son and then a daughter, and Grace's days were full in the way she had always wanted them to be.
Ada was her closest friend through all of it. They had shared a market row for 5 years, soared side by side through rain and harmattan, and borrowed from each other's change when customers paid in large notes. Ada was loud where Grace was quiet, quick where Grace was careful. She was the first person to say something Grace was not ready to hear. "Your mother is always in your house," Ada said one Tuesday, not looking up from her cutting board. "More than you are." Grace laughed it off. Mothers were like that. The first signs that something was wrong came quietly, as these things always do. Victor began to come home late. Not dramatically late, just late enough to unsettle. He stopped asking about the children's school fees with his old care. He began offering opinions about Grace that sounded like they had been shaped somewhere else, that she was too rough around the edges, too market-minded for the life they were building together. They were not his words. Grace heard that clearly. She just did not yet know whose they were. And Pauline was always there, dropping in with food, sitting with Victor when Grace was at the market, making herself indispensable in ways that seemed like love and functioned like something else entirely. Her mother was everywhere, and Grace, who trusted her mother the way a person trusts the ground beneath them, kept walking without looking down. The letter fell out of Victor's jacket pocket on a Thursday morning. He was moving quickly, distracted by a phone call, heading for the door. The envelope landed at Grace's feet. Victor was already outside. And so Grace stood alone in her kitchen and unfolded a single piece of paper that ended life as she had known it. It was Pauline's handwriting. She had known it since childhood, Neat, careful, practiced. The letter was not long. It did not need to be. 2 years compressed into 1 page. Meetings at the depot arranged around Grace's market days. Pauline's quiet assurances that Grace would never notice, that Grace was too trusting, that Grace was not a problem. She had called her own daughter not a problem, the way you call a sleeping dog not a threat. Grace folded the letter, put it in her wrapper, made breakfast, took the children to school, came home, sat down. She did not cry that day, or the next, or the day after. Ada said later that those were the 3 days Grace looked most like herself. Calm, settled, completely focused. And that was exactly how Ada knew something terrible had happened. On the morning of the 4th day, Grace called her father's younger brother in Akweze and told him she was coming. She spent 6 hours moving money between accounts. She closed the joint account. She packed everything that carried her name and everything that carried her children's names. She did not take Victor's things. She did not leave a note. She took her pepper soup pot.
Victor came home to a house that still smelled like her, but contained nothing of her. He called every number he had. Then he drove to Pauline's compound, which was the very first place his mind went. And that single instinct confirmed everything Grace had already held in her hands. Pauline had not heard from her either. Neither of them knew about Akweze. Neither of them had thought to ask about Grace's life before they entered it and rearranged it around themselves. In Akweze, Grace started again with a borrowed table, a charcoal stove, and the pot she had carried in her own 2 hands. Her uncle's compound became the base. Within 4 months, she had a loyal customer base. Within a year, she had a covered store with 2 young assistants who called her Madame Grace with the kind of respect that cannot be purchased. Ada came to visit 6 months after Grace left and never quite returned to Omefe. She moved her provisions business to Akweze, set up shop beside Grace's store, and the 2 women built the kind of partnership that the market women of Akweze still speak about. Victor found her eventually, 3 years and 7 months after the Thursday morning with the letter. He came with Pauline. Grace was sitting on her veranda when they arrived, a veranda she had built herself on land her uncle had transferred into her name. She was wearing a good wrapper and no expression. She had been told they were coming. She had chosen not to leave. She offered them water. Victor had aged in a way that had nothing to do with years. His depot had collapsed under debts he stopped managing the year Grace left. He spoke carefully now, like a man choosing words from a very small supply. He said he was sorry. He said it several ways. He looked at her compound, at the store visible through the open gate, at the 2 children who came out to greet their mother and went back inside without acknowledging him. He looked like a man trying to count what he had destroyed and losing count before he finished.
Pauline sat beside him with her hands folded in her lap. She did not look well. The church had found out. Small towns have long memories and loose mouths. And her position as women's leader was gone, along with most of the standing she had spent decades arranging. She exchanged everything she built for something that had not kept its side of any promise. She looked exactly like that. Grace listened to both of them without interrupting. She waited until they were finished. Then she thanked them for coming. She told them she had nothing to give them. No anger, no open door, no version of what they were hoping for when they made the drive to Akweze. She said it without cruelty and without any warmth, the way a person speaks when they have processed something so completely that only fact remains
and everything else has been quietly released. She walked them to the gate herself. She closed it behind them. She stood in her compound for a moment and listened to the sounds of the market, to her children's voices somewhere inside the house, to Ada's laugh carrying from 2 stalls down the road. Then she walked back to her veranda. She sat down, and she was fine. Grace never told her children why she left. She let them grow up knowing only that her mother built something from nothing and never looked back. Do you think she was right to protect them from the truth? Or did they deserve to know exactly what their father and grandmother did? Drop your answer in the comments. This one will divide people. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs it today. And drop a comment. We want to hear from you. God bless you.